So this section on painting covers pages 55 and 56. One of the things about painting is when you are trying to come up with how much paint to buy to paint a room or your whole house, one of the important things to do is they always have to mix the colors to give you the color that you want to paint, which means you can't return the paint. So you've got to be really careful about how much you buy because you're stuck with it. Now you want to have a little bit extra just in case you need to touch up over the years, but you don't want to have a crazy amount of extra because you had to buy it all, especially at the cost of paint today. Now in these examples, they're putting paint at $12 to $20 a gallon, where anymore we're talking paint is going to be $50 to $100 a gallon. And if you have an extra 5 gallons less, you could be out, $300 to $500 worth of your own money because you overestimated how much you needed. So how do we decide how much paint we needed? Well, first of all, you look at the rooms that you're going to paint, and you figure out the walls. So if you're in an inside house, or the inside rooms of a house, most walls are going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 feet. So let's just do a standard room and just say that it's 8 feet tall. And if we measure how long it is, let's say it's a 10-foot long wall, we know that if we multiply 8 feet by 10 feet, we get how many square feet it is. Remember the little symbol I used for square feet, 80 feet squared. So it would be 80 square feet of paint. Well, let's say that the gallon of paint that I bought covers 400 square feet. Well, that means in order to paint that one wall, I need 1 gallon of paint, and I'm going to have quite a bit left over because I'm not even using half of the square footage. But oftentimes you're going to paint, you're going to put 2 coats on. So if you're going to put 2 coats on, you put a 2 under there just so you have 2 coats. 400 divided by 2 coats is 200 square feet. So if you put 2 coats on, it's going to take 200 square feet, which you still have plenty. But most of the time you're painting more than just one wall. So let's look at this one wall here, and it's 8 foot by 10. And let's look at what the other wall looks like. And let's say that it's 8 feet by 16. Well, that would be 128 square feet. Okay, and as you paint more and more of the walls, you're going to have more and more square feet. So let's try to do this in more of a, not really a 3-dimensional because I'm not very good at that, but let's say that we have, well, let's say that we're looking down on this room. So looking down on it from above, and let's say that this is 12 and this is 18 feet. And that means this room would be 18 feet and this room would be 12 feet. And let's say that the height of the room is 8 feet. So 8 feet high. So if we took 12 times 8, that would be the square footage of this wall. And 18 times 8 would give you the square foot of this wall. And then this would be 96 and this would be 144. So if we add up the square foot of all of these walls, we'd get 96 plus 96. We would get 480 square feet. And if our gallon of paint covered 400 square feet, we are stuck having to buy 2 gallons of paint because 1 would not be enough. So if we bought 2 gallons, and let's say each gallon was $16.50, we'd end up spending $33 on paint, even though we wouldn't use nearly all of it. So that gives you an idea of how to determine how much paint to do for a room. One of the things you're going to run into, though, is very few times do you have a room that you're trying to paint that has no doors or windows. And the example I gave you was as if you had no doors or windows. So if you have a room here, and it's got a window here, and a window here, and let's say this is a 3 by 3 window, and this is a 3 by 3 window, and this is 12 feet long by 8 feet. You can figure out the square foot of that room by going 12 times 8 and getting 96 square feet. But we're not going to paint over the windows, so we're going to subtract the amount of window space. So this window here is 3 times 3 is 9 square feet. And this one is also 9 square feet. So rather than needing 96 square feet to paint that room, we have 96, and then we subtract the 9 feet for each of the windows. So we're going to subtract basically 18 feet, so we only need 78 square feet to paint that room. Since we're not painting the windows, we can remove that amount, and then we can find out how many gallons of paint we need. So that's what we're going over with this. So let's just look at example 1 here, now that I've kind of gone over what this section looks like. Sam and Rick, they've been contracted to paint 2 11-foot by 30-foot rooms. So let's go ahead and draw the 2 11 by 30-foot rooms. I like to draw these out just because it really helps me to see what I'm doing here. So there's my 2 11 by 30-foot walls. Each wall has 2 3-foot by 5-foot windows. 3-foot by 5-foot windows. So this is 3, 5, 3, 5. Does it say each room has that? Each wall, okay. Each wall has those size windows. So we're going to be subtracting the area of those windows away from here when we're done. Okay, it also says each wall has a 3 by 7-foot door. So it doesn't matter where you put the door, you just have to put it in here so you know to subtract it. Okay. Sam and Rick will use 2 coats of paint. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, first of all, is find the area of each of these walls. So the area of this wall right here is 30 by 11. Okay, so this is 330 square feet. And this one is 330 square feet. But then we have to take out this area, which is 21, 3 times 7. This area, which is 15, and this area, which is 15. So our total area of that top wall is going to be 279. In the bottom wall, it's exactly the same, so it's also going to be 279. So we have 2 walls that are going to use 279 square feet of paint each. So if I take that and multiply it by 2, because I have 2 walls, I'm going to need 558 square feet of paint. But what does it also say? It says that I'm going to put 2 coats of paint on each wall, which means my amount of square foot is going to double. So I'm actually going to have 1,116 square feet of paint that I need because I'm doing 2 coats there. All right, so that's the amount of paint I need to cover that much. Now I need to know how many gallons I'm going to have to buy. So number of gallons is going to have to do, it says there that each gallon covers 400 square feet. So it covers 400 square feet. I take 1,116 divided by 400, and that will tell me how many gallons of paint I'll need. It says I need 2.79 gallons of paint, which you can't buy paint that way, so we have to round up. I'm going to need 3 gallons. And how much is the paint? The paint is $12.75 per gallon. So in order to find out how much the paint's going to cost me, I multiply that by 3, and I get the answer that the book does, hopefully, of $38.25 for those 3 gallons of paint. So that's the way you figure out how much paint you're going to need in order to paint your room. So in addition to that, they are going on page 56, and they're given that same information, the Sam and Rick, but they're not only going to charge them for the paint when they do this for, somebody that's hired them, they're also going to pay for the labor. So what it says here in example 2 on page 56, it says that Sam and Rick each get $20 an hour. And it's going to take them 3.5 hours to paint these 2 rooms. So if I took $20 an hour and I multiply it by 2, because there's a Rick and a Sam, so that's 2 of them, they're going to actually make $40 an hour. That's what I'm going to be charged as a customer, because I'm paying both Sam and Rick. And then I multiply that times 3.5 hours worth of time, and that means it's going to cost me not only the amount for the paint, but it's also going to cost me another $140 to have Sam and Rick paint those walls for me. So notice that if you become somebody that can actually do your own painting, you're only going to pay $38.25 for the paint, and you're saving yourselves that $140 that you would add to that in labor charges. So just something to consider there.